2 of my Next Level Business Summit. So much information. I'm loving it. And I love that there's a good mix. So I really, really do believe that there's something for everybody here, no matter where you are at in your stage of business. So for those of you who don't know, my name is Jen Behill. I am a life and business coach for coaches. I've been a coach my entire life. I was raised by a coach. And so I really believe in coaching. I believe in helping coaches, up level their skill. I want to help coaches make more money so that they can have more impact in the world. And so that's what I do. But I also know that there are skills and things that we need to learn with business. And by learning from other people, we have the ability to shorten the learning curve, which is what this summit is about. And today, right now, we are talking about one of my favorite subjects, which a lot of people don't know, but we're talking about stories, social media stories with Lindsay Sewell. And I have to tell you, Lindsay, for me, when I first started with stories, I really didn't get it. When I went from offline to online, there was a big education and wake up call. And so anytime something came out, I was like, well, what's the point in that? Even to this day, sometimes I still have to explain to my boyfriend, why stories, right? What's the difference? But once I started using it, it was fun. It was kind of like my creative fun thing. And what I learned is that I actually started getting clients from it. Mm-hmm. I did it for fun, for creative stuff. And then it was people are sending me messages. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't even intentional. So when I saw this, I'm like, no, people need to know that this is a thing. So everybody, this is Lindsay Sewell, and we're going to have her share with us how you can make money off of stories.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I was just thrilled to be invited to speak here, and there is so much value that you are sharing with people over these 3 days. It's incredible. And I agree with you. I love the mix of mindset and motivation and business strategy. And that's really what I do. I'm a marketing and business coach. And one of the things that really drew me to stories was the shifting tides that I see in video marketing that have started happening, but I think will become even more pronounced in 2021. So I did write some notes down for you guys because I want to give you a little background on, some people think stories, they're just for kids. And it's just people showing their lunch and getting on there with funny filters. And yes, it can be that, but it's so much more. And in 2018, so this was 3 years ago now, Mark Zuckerberg actually said that stories were on track to overtake the posts in the newsfeed. And a lot of people don't know that the timeline has really gotten reduced in its exposure and its impact and how many people are seeing it. And stories is very competitive with some of the other things out there like Snapchat. And obviously, if you're Facebook and you own Instagram, you probably want to be very competitive with the other social media platforms out there. So anytime I see a trend like that the actual platform will reward you for using, it's something that you should take notice of in your business, even if you're I don't know how I feel about that. And then also just look at things like the rise of TikTok, right? Our attention spans as an audience are getting shorter and shorter. And people will show up to watch a longer form video like this at a summit, at an event, or if you have a weekly show. But overall, their attention span is so short and quick that you need to get in and get out and be able to share your message and your impact and how you help and serve people very, very quickly. And that's something that Facebook stories allow you to do every single day. So you get to be in front of your audience every single day with your Facebook stories, which is incredibly powerful.
Yes. And it's so funny because I'm the old lady in the room, right? And so I definitely have that tendency to be I'm not doing that. I'm not learning anything new. Just stay in my lane, right? And I kind of was that way with stories in the beginning, but I have to admit over the last year, when I'm consuming content, it always starts with stories.
Yes.
Right. And I remember actually watching your story the other day, and it was listen, this is kind of the breadcrumbs to your good stuff. This is the shorter form into the longer stuff. This is how you get people to go, oh, that's interesting. And that's how it's almost like a funnel in itself, right?
It is. And I like to say it's like a promotion explosion. So it allows you to take a very short form video, grab people's attention very quickly, find out who's interested, and point them back to where you actually want them to go and consume your longer form content or your lead magnets, or even get onto your newsletter, because I get a lot of subscribers to my newsletter through using my Facebook stories, which is ultimately, for me, all my business. Everything leads to my Facebook group and my newsletter. That's where I want to collect people. So I use all these other little pieces of promotion in order to bring people back to where I can communicate with them over and over and over again.
Yeah. I think that, so before we go further, let me just say, again, as you're popping on and as you're kind of consuming this, keep in mind that you learn by doing and participating. I highly recommend you comment. And also, guys, this is your chance to get free coaching. Like this is 45 minutes of somebody who's an expert and doing well in her business with this one little tool. If you want to know something specific, now is your chance. So drop it in the comments. I'm actually watching for comments. I will make sure that all of your questions get answered, whether it's while we're on the live or afterwards. So make sure that you do that. So let's dive in. I know we talked a little bit about using it for, shorter content to lead into other things, but what are the nuts and bolts, like why stories? Why is it so powerful?
Yeah. So there's a couple fundamentals. I talk a lot about attraction marketing. If you're not familiar with attraction marketing, at its core, it's really attracting people to you rather than having to go out and cold prospect people. So it came from me wanting to not prospect, because I absolutely could not stand going out and trying to start a conversation with somebody who may have zero interest in what I was offering, and then try to really do that weird, awkward dance of like, I'm pretending I'm building rapport with you, but I just actually want to sell you something. So I started really diving deep into attraction marketing, and there's some fundamental laws, right? So one of the laws of attraction marketing is familiarity. It's that when people become familiar with you, you automatically become more trustworthy in their mind. And if they're seeing you over and over and over again on social media, maybe you're posting on your timeline, but they're also seeing you 3, 4, 5 times a day in your Facebook stories, you just naturally become more familiar to them and they start to trust you more. It's like, I always like to use real world examples. So if you saw your neighbor on the street, you're probably going to be like, hey neighbor, how's it going? You're going to say hello. They're familiar. You feel safe and comfortable around them. Versus if you're on your street and you see some stranger in a hoodie and you can't see their face and you don't know who they are, you're probably going to cross the street and go to the other side. So you don't want to be the proverbial stranger on social media that people are like, well, who are they? And why are they trying to sell me something?
So I'm going to stop you right there, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but here is something, and I've talked about this in a couple of the other lives that we did, and it's so funny, is that we all have a tendency, especially in the beginning of our businesses, because we want to learn from other people, right? And so everything we do is kind of a takeoff of that, right? Like, oh, this person is doing this, and this person's doing this, and then we go, but there's so much competition, how am I going to stand out? And I'm like, okay, because we're all doing the same shit, like, right? And when you're saying that familiarity, I see stories as a way to really show your personality and show who you are. People can get familiar with you because people buy from people that they like.
Yep. And that's the second law. So you had a perfect segue. We planned this, by the way, guys. The second one is the law of likability. So people like people who are like them. And that's another beautiful thing about Facebook stories, because you get to have what's basically your own personal reality TV show. And you can show up a little bit more raw in there. You can show more of the behind the scenes. I did a series of stories last night about one of my favorite things, which is CauseBox. And I was showing people the CauseBox that I got. I don't sell that. I just buy it. I love it. But I had people reaching out to me being like, oh my goodness, how do you like those socks? And now I have exactly what I want, which is I have conversations with real humans who are getting to know me and who feel like they know me and they like me. And when they see my actual offers, they're more likely to feel comfortable reaching out. And so you have this familiarity, you create this likability, you get to share this behind the scenes into your world, which can be more private and personal because it does go away after 24 hours. It's not just lingering out there on your timeline of you like with no makeup on and sweaty selfies. and you start to really build this bond in a few short minutes a day with your ideal customers. And that's the other thing I love is I have 2 kids, one that's 7, one that's 4. They're both, well, the 4-year-old isn't even in school yet. The 7-year-old's remote learning. Like, I got to get in and get out and do what I need to do on social media very efficiently in order to run my business. And so they're a great way to do that because I'm not on a 20-minute Facebook Live every single day, but I can still push people to that content that I create weekly.
Right. It is so funny because I think that it's a window into what people like about what you do, right? Like, as you can see what people comment, you can see who people are watching. And I can tell you that by far the most engagement that I get are the posts where I'm doing something stupid. Or, you know what I mean? They're like, oh my God, you're crazy. Like last week I was in Arizona and I was skateboarding and like, I'm so excited because I'm thinking that I'm like really doing the thing. And then you see me, like my daughter took a video and I'm like barely moving. Like, like, no, wait, I'm coming. I'm coming along, right? And I got so many comments from people like, oh my God, you're hilarious, right? Like things like that. It lets people, like you said, get connected to an actual human. And especially right now where we are so lacking that, I think it's such a great thing.
I can't tell you how many times I have somebody reach out to me and they are asking me about something that I'm promoting or, you know, wanting to know more about my coaching programs. And I'm trying to figure out, you know, is this person in my Facebook group? Are they on my email list? Like, and they have been watching my stories. Like they've been watching, they've been consuming my content that I've been putting in front of them, and they feel comfortable enough to come and reach out to me. And that's really what you want in your business, because the best prospect is one that feels safe. And the safest one is one that comes to you because they've already closed themselves. Right. By the time they're coming to you, they're just looking for you to answer a couple questions about what it looks like to work with you. And they have already made the decision that they're invested and interested in working with you. And that's what this being able to be very visible to them via stories, it gives them that insight and it gives them that connection with you.
Right. 100% agree. I love it. So anything else those are all really great reasons. One thing I do want to know is because, and this is kind of goes back to what you were saying, I've had the same thing happen where people have reached out or responded, or they're watching me on stories and I'm like, they're not friends with me. They're not following me. How did they find me? So can you tell a little bit about what the reach is like and how can you extend that using stories when it's not necessarily just on your feed?
Yeah. So first of all, having your profile on public, I believe is really important if you're a business owner. And I know a lot of people get nervous and they're like, but I want to be private, or I've got my kids there, or I don't want my family and friends to see all this stuff. And I say like, hey, your Facebook page, if you're in business, and I mean your profile, and your page, both of them, they're both your digital storefront. And so in order to if you want to be in business online, you've got to get comfortable putting yourself out there because people want that. And when your profile is public, if somebody is sharing your content, like they're sharing your Facebook Lives or they are commenting, Facebook is, and I don't know all the ins and outs. I don't work at Facebook. I don't know all the ins and outs of the algorithm, but they are taking your stuff and they are putting it out in front of more people. So one of the reasons why I like to use a lot of the features with stories, like the polls and the stickers, is because Facebook will reward you for doing the things that they want you to do. And so if you're getting a lot of views, if you're getting people sending you the reactions, the hearts, the thumbs up, if you're getting people clicking your polls, they're going to say, this is good stuff, and we're going to share it with more people. And the other thing is the more often you actually post stories, every time you do, you move into the front of the line. So you're getting in front of people if you're posting throughout the day so that people will see those refresh stories and you get more reach. Right.
Absolutely. So any other, I feel like, again, those are all really powerful reasons to use stories. If you have any other ones, please share them. But I also want to talk about maybe things that we can avoid, because I've also done that. I've done the things where you're like, why isn't anybody looking at me? I must just be really boring, which I can be, right? But what are things that you see people doing that aren't really working or aren't effective?
Yeah. So a couple things to think about when people get started, they're like, I don't have anything to say. So I'll just take that little share button from my timeline and I'll just share that to my story. Don't just do that, guys. I mean, if there's something once in a while, like if you have a great Facebook Live and you want to share it, go ahead and do that, because I am very much somebody who says repurpose your content and promote your content and drive people to your various pieces of content. But just don't just post your post in your timeline and then share it to your stories. That's just, it's not, they're meant to be fun. They're meant to be engaging. They're meant to be different. The other thing is nothing says I'm a marketer more than just posting other people's quotes.
Gosh, I do see that a lot. I see that a lot.
Sometimes I go through people's stories and it's just like quote after quote after quote. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so boring, right? Like,
right.
So instead, here's a great idea. So if you don't want to post other people's quotes, this is something that I've started doing, is started taking my own quotes from videos that I create and using that to put together quotes that I can intersperse in my stories. So if somebody doesn't go back and watch my entire Facebook Live or my entire YouTube video, they're going to get this nugget of what I think is the most important message from there. Now, that's powerful because now people are hearing your own voice, your own message. They know what you stand for. They're going to figure out if you can help them and whether or not you're the coach or the consultant or, the business partner for them. So don't just post a bunch of other people's quotes, but you can use yours and you can repurpose them. And the other thing is that a lot of people have said, oh, hey, because stories go away after 24 hours, and this goes a lot for network marketers, like you can post your products in here. And so all you see is bottles of their products, or you just see like story after story after story of before and afters. And I'll just caution you, don't be an infomercial. So you want to intersperse some curiosity. You want to let people know who you are and how you can help them, but know that just because they go away after 24 hours doesn't mean you want to turn into a infomercial channel in your stories, because they will ignore you then and they won't look at you. And then the opposite of the algorithm benefit is true in that case, is that Facebook just will stop showing you to those people.
Right. Absolutely. I think there's a good mix. Now, when I first really started getting into stories, and I had a coach that I was working with, and one of her things was doing like mini trainings on stories. And I think that there's a way to do it, but there's also a way not to do it, because it kind of falls back into that kind of like what you're talking about. It becomes it's just one big infomercial, because yes, you're doing some training, you're helping people, but also everybody knows you're trying to sell them something. So where is that balance for you? Do you believe in doing mini trainings on stories? Is there guides that you would follow with that?
Yeah, so I like to call it like a story arc formula. So the way that I like to do things is kind of in multi-parts. So if you, like, let's say you sell a beauty product, maybe you would do something where you would show an image of you just getting, first thing in the morning, makeup free. Then maybe you would do some like little speed video showing you putting on one of your products. And then the next story would be like, yeah, so grateful I'm out the door in 5 minutes. So you're giving people this story arc. And then maybe in the fourth one, you're like, hey, more tips like this, join my Facebook group, where you're inviting them to the next step that isn't necessarily like, hey, buy this product that I just showed you how to use. And same with coaches. As I mentioned, a lot of my content is to drive people to my longer form content. So I might talk about, hey guys, I did a video today on XYZ things. Go ahead and head over to my profile if this is something you think would be valuable to you, and check out the full video. That video will do the selling. That video will have the strong call to action at the end to either download a lead magnet, get on my email list, book a call, whatever it is. The stories are just to pull out the people who are interested and drive them over to that content. The other thing about, doing a full-on training is that if they get the whole training in the stories, then why do they need to go to the next step? And I see too many people just like giving everything away and then being like, why isn't anyone signing up with me? Like, because you're giving them the whole thing and not giving them what I like to say is the what and the why, but not the how.
I like that.
Yeah, if you tell people what it is that you can help them with, why they need that, but they have to work with you to find out how, all the details of how that works, then you can lead them to where you want them to go.
Right. So here's what I love about that. And again, this falls back into the bucket of things Jen did wrong. Is doing like these longer, mini trainings. And it was so hard to condense it down and make it valuable. And so it would turn from, 4 slides to 12 slides to like, you know what I mean? And then you can see the numbers going down. People are like, I'm so sick of it. Like, I don't care. Right. And then you get the opposite effect on the algorithm because people are no longer watching you. What I like about it, and now I understand, and this is something I work with my clients on, is that you want the people who want you, right? You're not trying to convince people that they need to work with you. You want the ones who, like you said, are that like they watch you, they like you, they know you, it's answering a few questions and they're in, right? So why waste time trying to convince people when all you have to do is give these short little blurbs, which are more appropriate to people's attention spans. And if they want to work with you, they have to take a tiny step. And it could just be going to your post. It could be joining your email list, but at least they're starting to raise their hand a little bit and taking a small, tiny action step forward. Because otherwise, if they're not willing to do that, why would you want to work with them?
Exactly. They're making a micro commitment towards working with you further. And that's really what you're looking for.
Yes. Oh, love it. Okay. So what other things are people doing that you see they're like, stop doing that?
Well, I would say those 3 are the biggest ones that they shouldn't be doing. But, one of the other things that I really encourage people to do is keep the multimedia going, because you have so many tools within stories. First of all, you can go over, if you don't like all the tools inside of Facebook, go over to Instagram and record them over there. They have tons of filters, tons of stickers, all kinds of great stuff. And there's a little arrow button that you can just hit the arrow button and it saves it right to your phone.
Okay, I have a confession to make. I stopped using Instagram for a little bit because I realized my ideal customer was on Facebook. And so I went back and I'm like, I'm really just going to focus on Facebook and my email list. But I love Instagram stories. It's all fun, right? And you get to use filters and their graphics are better and their fonts are better, right? And so that is literally what I do, is I do them on Instagram. And it's funny because I have a whole following of people who follow my Instagram stories and they've been with me forever, right? But I'll make the stories there and then I download it and then I upload it into Facebook.
Yes. And that's a really good point, is because you have different people on both platforms. So a lot of people ask me like, oh, Lindsay, like, do I need to do different stories on Instagram versus on Facebook? And I'm like, no. Chances are you got different people on both places. Different people are watching you, for time's sake. And I'm big on efficiency, like reuse them, make them interesting, but reuse them. And that's one of my favorite ways to do it. And I'm the same way. My ideal customer is on Facebook, on YouTube, but I use Instagram Reels as well, which is kind of just like a longer story, to drive people to my YouTube channel. So again, I'm always using that kind of short form video content to push people who they make the micro commitment. They go, ooh, I like what I heard in the 15 seconds, and I'm ready to click the button and listen to you longer. And if you can drive people over to where you have more binge-worthy content, then you have a plethora of stuff that you can sell them on as they watch through all the different things that you can help them with and teach them and train them. So using the multimedia, going over, using the fun filters, using text, using, apps that are going to caption things for you, because some people are still in their offices. I know a lot of us are at home, but some people are still in their offices and they're watching their phone on silent. And if they can't hear what you're saying and they can't read it, they're not going to take action. And then using filters and using the GIFs and the polls and all of the little tools that get people the questions where you can ask people questions and they respond back to you. Sometimes I'll do that even with something that is completely irrelevant to my business, just to kind of see, like, who's watching me, who's paying attention, who's willing to give me that commodity of their attention and to actually respond. Those are the people, it's the Pareto principle, right? You want to focus on the 20% that are going to give you the 80% of all the results. So definitely use the multimedia. The other thing I would say would be, following through those story arcs, right? You can do this as a business owner. If, you got into a business because you wanted to be home with your kids, you can create a story that says, all I wanted was to be home with my kids. And I was commuting, 2.5 hours a day. So I looked for something online. I found XYZ, and now I have this. And you're just taking people through a process and you're allowing them to step into your story, envisioning themselves. And then they're like, well, okay, so tell me how you did that. Mm-hmm. Because I want that story too.
Exactly. And they want it with you because they're familiar and they like you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. And then there's a couple things that, just some other things that the audience can do that people really enjoy seeing. I wrote down behind the scenes. I've done stories with some of my equipment in the office because people will ask me like, well, what kind of ring light do you use? And how do you hold your phone? And what is that microphone? And so I'll just do kind of behind the scenes snapshots for people so that they can see into my world. I'll do some little quick, I'll take how-to tutorials maybe that I'm doing on TikTok and bring them over and share them on Facebook, but not like a long training, just like a quick, like, here's how to do something in 15 seconds. And then my favorite thing is to promote to other content that I've created. And that could be promoting your lead magnet. It could be promoting your longer Facebook lives. It could be promoting your Facebook group. It could be promoting your YouTube video. So using this to promote things. And I save a lot of these. So you can reuse them.
And I did see that you promoted this event.
Yes.
And here's what I loved about that is that, number one, it's my event, so thank you. But but it was so simple, right? You made it so easy. Like, this doesn't have to be complicated. And literally it was like, if you're interested, send me a DM. You know what I mean? So again, they're taking that little micro action of like, okay, yeah, I want to learn more about this. And it wasn't like 10 slides of why you need to do this. You didn't take a picture of everything that's on the the lead magnet. It was just like, here's what this is about. If you're interested, send me a message, right? And then it led to a post. And what was funny is, and I saw this post, you ended up having like a ton of comments on the post, like, what is this? Sign me up. And what was interesting is that you didn't even use initially the link.
Yeah.
Do you know which post I'm talking about? Because I remember you said, I just woke up to all these comments, right? And everybody was like, sign me up, sign me up, sign me up, right? And I want to go back and make sure everybody got signed up. But it was like, it was later that you put the link. And I think that, especially right now, people want the people. And so we're so focused on, yes, automation is great, but also they want the personal interaction. And so you're asking people like, hey, raise your hand if you want this.
Yes. And that's, so you bring up a really interesting point. One, and I'll kind of talk about this strategy that I use so that I'm very transparent about my business. And I did a couple things. One, I created a couple, it was like a 3-slide thing that would lead people to the event first. So it was like, hey, I'm going to be speaking at this event on this day on this topic. And then it said, but that's not all. And I kind of just picked 3 overarching themes that were from the sales page. But I didn't put all the speakers' pictures. I didn't put everything from the opt-in page. And I said, but that's not it. If you want these 3 things, then, by the way, then the next slide said, here's the event, and you've got to DM me for the info. And then later on, I went back and I did like a short video recording. And I said, hey guys, I don't know if you saw my earlier story, or if you saw the post on my timeline, you can go comment on that if you want. So again, driving people back to that, or you can just click on the poll here if you want to come to this Next Level Business Summit, and we're going to talk about blah, 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 blah. And so I had people privately messaging me on the poll. And here's the other thing you want to remember with stories, because I did this mistake in the beginning. The answers to your polls go away in 24 hours, sometimes like 22.
Oh, wow.
So like you think you have more time, but you don't. So go ahead, and if people are commenting on your posts, make sure that you pull those names up and screenshot them if you don't have time to message them immediately, because you can always go back and message them. But I've sometimes had like 30 people comment, and then I haven't been fast enough and I've lost them. And I'm like, okay, technology nincompoop here. Please come back and comment again.
Oh no, I actually didn't know that. So the poll itself will go away. It doesn't get archived?
No, and you don't see, well, I mean, you may be able to get it out of the archives, but I haven't been able to figure out how to like find all of the responses again.
Because you're only getting the initial slide.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
That is a great point.
So go and screenshot those names so that you know. But then again, that whole strategy on my timeline. So I'm in my stories, I'm pointing people to my timeline if they want to go check out that post on more information about the promotion. But I was very strategic in asking people to raise their hand because, again, I'm always thinking about how will Facebook reward me for the behavior. So I could be lazy. I'm saying that very nicely, but I can be lazy and just post the link, right? And people might click it, but it's not going to get shown to a lot of people if people just click the link and don't react and don't comment, because Facebook goes, nobody's interested in this content, even if they are. So I'm always asking people for their engagement, because if they're liking and they're commenting, then Facebook says, oh, people are liking this. I'll push it out to more people, and then more people are going to see it. And if they can't just get the information and they have to raise their hand and say, please tell me more, you know that they're very interested because they took an action. And you're also getting more engagement, and the post continues to get engagement. So that's very strategic on my part. And I did it on purpose, coming back the next day and saying, oh my gosh, like I now realize that I don't want to message all of you. Sorry.
Right? I think too, though, is you got to train people to the click. And this is something that I learned from one of my marketing coaches, is like when I first started doing this and I'm like, but nobody's clicking. Nobody's answering my polls. And she's like, because you got to train them like a dog, Jen. Like you have to train them. You have to be consistent enough with it that eventually they're like, oh yeah, click. You know what I mean? And so people, I do feel, will eventually, the right ones will eventually participate in the polls that are interesting to them. And that also gives you insight into why they're there.
Yes. And that goes back to something that we didn't talk about at all yet today, which is the first important step is to build the right audience of people. Because you said you got to train them to the click, but if they're not the kind of people that are interested in what you're putting in the click, they're never going to click. And so I've built an audience of people who are interested in learning marketing. I've built that very strategically over the last 3 years. And so I know what my audience is interested in. And I knew that something like this summit would be of interest to them. And they would say, yes, I want to hear about that. Now, if I was like, how to go out and buy a new car, people would be like, I don't care. That's not my thing. Or, how to clean your carpets. I don't know. I'm just... you have to build the right audience of people for the problem that you solve and for the people that you want to help. And then, like you said, you teach them how to engage with you. You teach them when they do something like that, they get something valuable in return, and they'll be like, well, yeah, I want that. I'm gonna raise my hand.
Right. Absolutely. So I do want to ask you, and I kind of touched on this a minute ago, when you talk about building the right audience, right? You've taken the time to really focus on building the right audience in the first place. Can you build your audience with stories? Can you increase that reach? Do you recommend things like hashtags? I know you say like when people share your videos and things like that, you can just organically grow that way. But specific to stories, is there a way that somebody could take stories and organically grow their reach?
I think that you would be better off to focus on building connections and friends on your profile with that audience, so that they will then in turn see your stories. Mm-hmm. And then you'll want to lead them into a place where you can actually collect them. I'm a big advocate of using social media to connect with the people out there that are right for me, but I'm also very leery of any kind of building strategy over on a social media platform that I don't own. So even though I have a Facebook group, I love my community, I love my group, I also make sure that every time someone comes into that group, I ask them if they want to be added to my email list so that I can have them in a safe place. If Facebook were to one day be like, Lindsay, I don't like what you're doing, and they just shut my account down and they took my group away from me, I would still have all of these people collected. So I don't see hashtags as much on Facebook as on Instagram. Definitely could work with you or work for you because hashtags are so popular over there. But like you, my ideal audience isn't over there as much, so I spend way more time on Facebook. But here's a way to take your Facebook stories and to get in front of a new audience would be tagging other people in your industry that may have more influence and authority and have a larger audience than you, but it's an audience that you want. So if somebody says, you're on a training with somebody and you really, you're inspired by them or you're motivated by them, and you take a photo of that training and you post it in your stories and you say something good about them and you tag them, they may very well go ahead and share that over to their stories.
Right.
And even though you're saying how great they are, if they have the audience that you want and they just shared you to their audience, there will naturally be people over there that come back and they're curious enough to check you out.
And you got to share. Right. So then the algorithm says, okay, this is interesting. So let's talk about that. And the reason I said hashtags is I maybe once or twice I've used hashtags in my stories on Instagram. I don't think that it really made a difference. I think that when I use locations, sometimes I'll get a bunch of views. And that's just really more about the algorithm. It's not like I'm getting their random followers, right? Like if I'm in Arizona or whatever.
They're Arizonians.
Yeah, I mean, it may not have a business, not even close, right, to being my ideal customer. But I have seen people do it, and there's a couple of people that have followed me for a long time who do like workouts or nutrition, whatever, and it's just like a ton of hashtags. So I was kind of wondering, like, if that actually helps. I haven't seen their accounts grow from it, so I was kind of curious. But I definitely, before we jump off, want to talk about the do's and don'ts when you're tagging someone to get that visibility. What are your? Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So don't just randomly tag people and hope you don't just go like, oh, I'm just going to tag Gary Vee every day because he's big. That's not good. A lot of times though, trainers, influencers, marketing gurus, if they are doing some sort of a free training or a challenge or something, they want to get their name out, right? And so they'll say, hey, if you take a screenshot, take a screenshot right now, and they'll make a face, and tag me and I'll add you to my stories or I'll shout you out or whatever they'll do for you. Well, this is a very natural way that people expand their audiences. If you do something that somebody who has more influence and authority wants you to do, if you make them look good, if you're sharing the value that you're learning from them and you're making it relevant and it's not just random, right? It's relevant. Like, hey, like if I tagged you on this, you're probably going to go ahead and share it to your stories. Like, so grateful to be invited on this training with Jen today. So much amazing content. There's still one day for the summit. Here's Jen if you want to go check it out. Like, you're going to be like, that's awesome because I'm offering you the value of sharing how much value that you're giving. My audience sees that. And then you're in turn going to share that and your audience is going to see me. And this kind of reciprocity, this is another one of the laws, guys. The law of reciprocity. When you do things for other people that make them look good, that help them to grow their business, if you believe in abundance, it comes back to you tenfold. So don't be doing it in a way where you're just trying to like skim off their audience because they have a big audience and you're just like, oh, I'm just going to tag, I'm going to tag Amy Porterfield and I'm going to tag, Grant Cardone and that's not relevant. But if you're doing it in a way that actually benefits them, oftentimes it will turn around and benefit you as well.
I call it good humaning. We all need to be doing some good humaning. Thank you for addressing that because I feel like there's a ton of people who are being taught or feel the need that they just need to do whatever scratchy, sleazy, graspy thing that they need to do to grow their businesses. And there are just better ways to do it. And it can still be done and it can still be effective. I know that I've done that when I've shared things and with the summit I'm sharing, even things that I've purchased. Like everybody knows that my background is in fitness. And yet I still purchase programs from other people that I like. And when I do, I'm like, I just bought this program and I love it. I've got a fitness and business coach that I followed for 6 years. And every time she sells something, I'm like, oh my God, I love her. And you know what I mean? And every time I do that, she shares me on her stories as well. And so it's just a very natural way of doing it. And she's a big influencer, right? And so it's just a natural way of doing it. It doesn't have to be grasping.
Yes, yes.
So thank you for sharing that. So tell us about your freebie that you're offering. I know it's to help people with stories. What is it? Why do people need it?
So you may have heard me mention, like, you should be doing videos. You want to make sure that they're captioned. You want to make them look good. You want to keep them engaging and entertaining. And then you might go, oh, that's so overwhelming. I'm a solopreneur. Like, I don't have a virtual assistant. I can't do all of this. So I actually put together a very quick PDF cheat sheet. So it's all on one page, but it's my favorite apps that you can get on your phone, most of which are going to be free, that you can download, some for Android, some for iPhone, because I have an iPhone, but I know there's Android users out there and some of them are not compatible. And you can go ahead and start making beautiful stories, right? You can make animated stories. You can do the captions where it's literally captioning you while you're speaking. So you don't even have to worry about going back and doing it afterwards. It's huge time saver. So go ahead and grab that. Are you going to post the link or do you want me to tell people? You
can tell people, but what I'm going to do is go back and put in the link in the description. So it will be in there right after this. Actually, I'll have time to do it.
Yeah. Because it's go.lindsaysewell.com/stories app. So go click the description and check it out. But you'll get that PDF over to you in your inbox to help you start making your stories awesome and getting more leads, getting more customers, getting more sales.
Yay. I know I will be signing up for that because I'm always interested in apps that make it a little bit easier and honestly fun. Guys, like, your business doesn't have to suck and be like just a grind all the time. It actually can be fun. Like I said, I've gotten clients off of stories and I love stories. It's kind of my fun, like, marketing thing that I just get to do. So definitely download the app. And then if people are like, oh my God, I love Lindsay, how do I work with her?
Yeah, so I've actually put together a special offer kind of just right before this for you guys. So if you go ahead and download those apps and just send me back an email when you get the first email with those apps and say that you heard about me on Jen's Summit, I actually have a Facebook Stories course. And it comes with a bunch of done-for-you templates as well that you can customize to make really beautiful video stories to promote your Facebook Lives or your lead magnets or your other videos on other channels and other content. And I'm going to offer for the Summit viewers a very special discount on that course. So just make sure you send me a note back. Let me know you heard about me here and I can get you access to that. And on my website, lindsaysewell.com, is a bunch of other ways where you can join my newsletter to hear about all of my upcoming programs, my coaching, when my coaching program's open, and there's some mini courses over there as well.
Awesome. So there you guys have it. You're getting a special discount. So not only are you getting a really cool download, which I personally will be downloading, so you'll see my name on there. I'll be on your list. And you're also getting a discount to a course. And again, I love stories, and it is a time saver. I think once you get used to doing it, it really does save a lot of time, and it makes it very personable in a huge online space where everybody feels like there's just so much competition. This is really a great tool to separate yourself and let people get that, know, like, and trust factor with you because you're a human, and they like that you like cats. People like that I eat tacos. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's your thing. So thank you so much for coming on. This was great. I was really excited to hear what you had to say about stories so I could actually take my stories to the next level. So
awesome.
Thank you so much for coming on, and I will definitely be staying in touch with you.
Wonderful.
And we'll see you guys all soon.
Thank you for having me. Have a great one.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Bye.